Hello, good people. I found the worst TV show ever, and it's not on TLC. Can you believe that? It's Tomorrow's Pioneers. It's a Palestinian Hamas children's show. Fantastic. Hamas has a television station, Al-Aqsa TV. They named it after Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is the second oldest mosque in Islam. It sits on Temple Mount in Jerusalem, where the first and second temple in Judaism once stood, many centuries before. Needless to say, the site is a point of contention. Now, Hamas was inspired to start the station in 2006 when their programming ideas were rejected by more established Arab television stations like Al Jazeera or Al Arabiya. Terrorist or not, it's tough to break into the industry. You remember that. I don't care if it's Hollywood or Riyadh. If you want to make movies or TV, you better be prepared for some rejection. Hamas was like, screw that, we're making our own television network. Props. Now, on the station was once a TV show called Tomorrow's Pioneers. Tomorrow's Pioneers aired between 2007 and 2009. There seems to have been some kind of reboot, and there are clips from as late as 2014, but that's not the main part of the show. For Tomorrow's Pioneers, think Sesame Street or Barney and Friends, but for rabid anti-Semites. Now, the show's themes focused on living under Israeli occupation. Now, I hear a lot of talk about generational curses, and this is the most striking example of one that I can actually think of. Like, I'm sorry, sweetheart, you have to spend your whole life full of hate trying to reach unattainable goals. It's bad enough when American parents do that to their kids over their own failed NBA dreams, but at least it's not terrorism. At least it's not terrorism. Son, I didn't make it to the pros, so you gotta destroy Israel, okay? Look, I am a baby and they have an iron dome. The show's creator is a man called Hazem Shawari, or Uncle Hazem. Shawari had hosted a radio show prior to this called Oven and Branches. He got the idea for Tomorrow's Pioneers by watching a Saudi program where a young girl talks to a bootleg Mickey Mouse and takes calls from the public. Now, initially, Shawari, or Uncle Hazem, was supposed to host the show, but they hired a young girl named Sarah. So he basically just copy-pasted the Saudi show to his. Now, this is a 2006 article from the New York Times, which gives some details about Tomorrow's Pioneers' development, kind of like Variety or The Hollywood Reporter, except for terrorists. If you want a full and complete rundown of the show episode by episode, please watch Nick Crowley's documentary in the link at the bottom. It's 92 minutes long, and it's worth every minute. This video is much shorter, and I'll just give you a quick overview of what went on. Every season, Sarah has a different mascot to host with her. The most famous is Farfour, the first season's co-host, or Wish.com Mickey Mouse. So Callie reports that Al-Aqsa stopped using Farfour because Disney forced them to, but I can't find any corroboration on that as of filming. Although Disney was not happy with the use of Mickey Mouse, they chose not to sue. Bob Iger, who was CEO at the time, says, "I didn't believe making a statement would cause Hamas to do anything differently," he said. "We're the Walt Disney Company. We're not a major government." Okay, fair enough. Walt Disney's daughter actually said this to The Guardian. She said, "It's not just Mickey. It's indoctrinating children like this, teaching them to be evil. The world loves children, and this is just going against the grain of humanity. What we're dealing with here is pure evil, and you can't ignore that." Anyway, for Farfour's exit, Farfour was given the deed to Palestinian land from his dying grandfather. Then, in the show's big finale, in the season's big finale, an Israeli interrogator beat Farfour to death for that land, for that deed. It became a meme in 2007, worldwide. Now, the next season was co-hosted by Nahul the Bee, who's Farfour's cousin. Nahul dies because Israel won't let him have access to life-saving medicine. He is martyred. What's interesting is that anyone who dies at the hands of Israel is a martyr. So there's an incentive to blame Israel for every death. Now, in the show, Israel is responsible for every death. But does that thinking bleed over into real life? Anyway, after Nahul, Asud the rabbit takes over. He looks like a bootleg Bugs Bunny. So Asud was a psychopath. He threatened to kill Danes over a drawing of Muhammad. Great lessons to teach children, by the way. Just really sets them up for success in life. We remember that the Charlie Hebdo attackers both ended up dead when they could have been living in Paris, having a family, and running a cell phone repair shop. Now, Asud died in an Israeli airstrike, which is interesting because Israel did bomb the Al-Aqsa television station in real life. They had warned the workers to leave so that they wouldn't be killed, and then they destroyed the studio. After that, Tomorrow's Pioneers decided to keep a group of children on stage during the filming. Convenient. It's almost as if these children could shield them from future attacks. Now, the season 4 co-host was Nasser the Bear. He may not have died at the end of the season. The footage for that is not complete. Some say he did, and some say he survived. Nasser is the most gung-ho of all the hosts, and he's the one that directly encourages the children to become super bombers. During season 4 of Tomorrow's Pioneers, it really goes too far. They bring on the children of this female bomber who, by killing herself, had actually abandoned these very children. She abandoned her babies. And they did a dramatic reenactment of her death. They made her children watch and encouraged those children to follow in their mother's footsteps. Now, to me, this is the most disturbing thing, especially that song in the background. What's more important to me than holding my own children? Her answer was death as a martyr. She preferred martyrdom to raising her own kids. So you know what they say about pornography? That you can't really define it, but you know it when you see it. That's how I feel about evil, and this episode is evil. Their mother joined a death cult. We see parents joining cults all the time, and their children invariably suffer. But this is a whole other dark level. Now, at the end of the last season, season 5, IMDb says that Sarah is martyred in the show's finale. However, I cannot find that corroborated anywhere else. It just says it on IMDb. In real life, she has a YouTube channel where she sings songs. The producers of Tomorrow's Pioneers actually had found her in a singing contest, so that actually makes sense. That's where she'd end up. I won't link it. There's no point in finding her unless you want to hear her singing, which, she might be a great singer. Now, it makes sense that Palestine hates Israel. Israel is their neighbor who defeated them in a war and has been lording their power over them for decades. People say that Israel has been better to them than the Egyptians were, but we're really not going to go into the history of that here. What we can say is that it is a known fact that Palestinians resent Israel. Later, in the 2010s, according to Nick Crowley, Palestinians were asked why they hated Israel, and some replied because they killed Farfour. So that's what they were talking about. Now, it's important to note that most of the Arab world and even some Palestinian leaders and parents have condemned this show. Tomorrow's Pioneers does not represent Islam. If it did, there would be no need to brainwash the kids because they would be indoctrinated from their environment already. They'd just pick it up from parents and relatives. Anyway, we live in an information age, and as communications technology has become more widespread and everyone has more access to it, it means more nefarious parties have access to it as well. We discuss this in my Patreon podcast a lot, but we'll just pose the question here and you can answer it. Do you think that the people who invented TV and satellites ever dreamed that their inventions would be used for something like this? Do you think they would have done it anyway? Thank you. Subscribe.